stumbling cliff for the embattled national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Prince Uche Secondus. While the PDP Board of Trustees has resolved that Secondus be allowed to retain his seats, it called for National Convention to usher in new party leaders latest by October. But some blocs within the party insist Secondus must be sacked for mismanaging the affairs of the party, which culminated in the loss of 3 governors. Let's share the story on the build-up to the crisis with you.
Another protest at the PDP headquarters. Another day with the fate of the national chairman of the PDP hanging in the balance. The call for his resignation gets louder. Uche Secondus is accused of mismanaging the affairs of the party and misappropriation of funds.
The numbers of governors of PDP are drastically reducing. We lost governor of Zamfara, we lost governor of Cross River, we lost governor of Ebonyi. It's a big loss and a big slap to the party. And it's a total loss. It's a shame to Uche Secondus. Let him resign, otherwise we'll continue to protest until he resigns.
The meeting of PDP governors to resolve the crisis in the leading opposition party ended in a stalemate. The National Working Committee's split resolution calling for Uche Secondus' resignation did not push him out. Members of the House of Representatives caucus of the PDP have also backed Uche Secondus. Another protest again. This is the second in less than 24 hours and the third in 2 days. This time it is a peaceful protest in support of the troubled chairman of PDP and an endorsement of his continued stay at the helm of affairs. This group alleges that some money bags within the party are desperately plotting to seize the reins of power.
First in the history of PDP, and that is why we are saying that Secondus should complete his tenure. And also, he has the capacity to lead the party to another victory, and he has the constitutional right to seek for another term. Say Secondus.
The Board of Trustees of the PDP is still undecided, but they are also more concerned about the recent drive to register 40 million Nigerians as members of the party and remain committed to keeping the PDP united.
Fully committed to not only resolving the issues at hand, but also working assiduously towards delivering good governance in our respective states and moving our party forward. Speaking on behalf of my colleagues, we have resolved, we are committed to remaining in PDP.
One thing I want to assure all of you is that PDP is a party that belongs to everyone. And PDP is a party that can reinvent himself at all given times. So nothing will be difficult to resolve. And we are on the pathway to bring Nigeria good news of peace that will reign in this party.
For now, Uche Secondus may enjoy the moment until all members of the party's hierarchy unanimously agree to pass a vote of confidence on his leadership or show him the way out.
This meeting has agreed that immediately the neck of the party should be convened for the party to constitute the National Convention Planning Committee, and the early convention should be held latest by the end of October. Also, that the zoning committee for the party position should also be constituted by the same National Executive Committee to be held immediately.
Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Yes, we thought this is a time that the People's Democratic Party will rise up to the challenge of being a viral opposition and face the ruling party head on. But with this lingering crisis, they don't even have time to, criticize or put the APC-led federal government on their toes. So they're battling with, internal wranglings.
Yes, everyone is positioning himself. All the posturings that we are seeing in APC, they are all geared towards 2023. What we are seeing in the PDP too is also geared towards gaining a strong foothold ahead of 2023. So the politics of 2023 is already being played in both parties. And this is not just a matter of, let's play the role of a good opposition. The PDP fancies its chances of reclaiming power. They think that the time is right for them to reclaim power. So because many of them are confident that they can win the next election, they are trying to position themselves, gain advantage over other critical power people within the party. So this is what we are seeing. It is the Nigerian people who will decide which party will control the center in 2023. But for the PDP members, they already see themselves as capable of taking power. And the powerful people within the party are all positioning themselves that, okay, in the event of the takeover of power from the APC, where will I be? How will I benefit tremendously from the takeover of the reins of power from the APC? That's why we are seeing all of these problems. But the significant thing that I see that happened yesterday is the fact that rather than wait until the last week of November for Secondus' term to wind up officially, to take care of the crisis, to limit the capacity of this crisis to bring down the party, they've now moved the convention to October. All along,
not December.
No. That's one of the significant decisions that I took yesterday. All along, Secondus had been saying that, look, to have convention in October is not feasible because the state congresses, the world congress have not been held. That has always been his argument.
So this one, they have to expedite.
Now, but in order not to disgrace him out of office, because they imagine that if they have to wait until that time, they cannot predict what would happen. And this crisis will go on and on. So by announcing to them that, look, convention will happen in October, even his own enemies now know that, look, we just need to endure this man for like 1.5 months. And then he'll be out of the way. So that looks like a kind of middle point or some form of soft landing for Secondus himself. Because his supporters don't want him disgraced out of office. And his supporters want him to still be in charge at the time of the convention. That since he still has some time, why are you not prepared to wait until November? But now they brought it to October. So let's see what happens between now and that October. Will they allow him to preside over that neck? Because as I said yesterday, they don't even want him to preside over a neck that will decide who goes into the electoral committee that will handle the matter of election of new officers and all that, because they felt that allowing him to do that will give him the power to appoint the people who can help him to retain power. So we'll see what happens as the days go by.
BC, we've seen this kind of pattern before, but ultimately, do you think this will affect the chances of the People's Democratic Party in the next general election?
Well, first of all, we need to know that politics is a game of interest. And people there are there because of different kinds of interest. And that is the case all over the world. Just that in our own particular case, self-centered interest seem to take more space than people-oriented interest. Having said that, for PDP, I think this should have been a time for them to prove to be a very capable opposition that is ready to take over from the APC based on different complaints of Nigerians about the ruling party now. But the way things are going, it's as if the PDP is more interested also in personal interest of the powerful people in the party and not necessarily about what they can do for the country. And if people will have seen through everybody. For me, I would have loved a very, very vibrant opposition. But as things are, I think APC, PDP, everybody is just interested in power for personal aggrandizement. And this, to me, is just unfortunate.
When you look at Nigerians, it's as if we are left with no choice. We have to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea. It's either PDP or APC. Now, from reckoning, from at least, when you look at the timetable, I don't see any other party coming, with their structure and everything as at now, from now till 2023, coming to dominate and displace these two political parties from the landscape. Because we're not, the NSAS people, they don't seem to be organized. They've not, they didn't consolidate on the gains they had through that protest, the mobilization they were able to do to form a political party or, chart a new course for themselves.
All over the world, you always have two dominant parties or even one dominant party. It's impossible to imagine that a party can be formed between now and 2023 election and be in position to challenge for power. In the case of APC was just a group of parties, not one party. So
that had their strongholds around.
When people talk about a third force, in our kind of politics, a third force cannot mount the kind of challenge that can deliver the center to it. It's not going to happen. A third force, no. Because the other parties, the two dominant parties, will win enough states to make it impossible for a third force to come and wrest power. So what the APC did was to simply get the most dominant opposition parties to come together. AMPP, then ACN, or Alliance, AC. They came together. These were parties that had won states. They had won elections on their own. They had control states. Then they all came together.
CPC.
And crucially, CPC managed to win one state, Nasarawa, so that they didn't even control the House of Assembly in Nasarawa at that time. Just managed to produce the governor. The PDP dominated the House of Assembly in Nasarawa.
Amakura had problem with them at some point in time.
Yeah, but invariably they left him alone. Now, where I'm going is, if you look at the way the situation played out at that time, in spite of coming together, they still had to rely on what looked like an implosion inside the PDP before they could even still take power.
Yep.
And in spite of that, go and look at the 2015 election. The APC still won by just 4 percentage points. So when you hear people say we voted overwhelmingly, the statistics do not show that. 4 percentage points. 48-52. So when, in our kind of politics, the ruling party is always so strong.
Very strong.
So strong that to even take power from it is extremely difficult.
Extra effort.
Yes. If they had not worked out on Jonathan, if those governors had not defected. Now, if APC had not wisely decided that, look, even if you are joining our party today, you can contest election the next day, they would not have benefited from the wranglings, from the squabbles within the PDP, because we have people like Otom, who left after the primaries of APC, of PDP, moved to APC. We have people like the governor of Kebbi State. He wanted to be governor over there, but they were not prepared to let him become governor because he came back from abroad with so much cash, became senator. Yes, became senator. You know, routed everybody, became senator. Then he was eyeing the governorship, and they were not going to let him become a governor. So he left the PDP, and the APC people welcomed him with open arms. The next day, he was already in their party. So that, for allowing that portion in their constitution, they were able to exploit the division within the PDP. So if we look at all of this, in spite of the fact that the conditions were ripe for a change, they still had to wait for divisions in the PDP before they could win the election. And when they won the election, they won narrowly. So the issue of third force, because many people ask me this question, even when we are discussing that, look, are we condemned to continue with these two parties? What I can say is it's not going to be easy to dislodge these two parties. One of the two parties will probably need to collapse into another party. The issue of a third force, I don't see it happening.
It's just unfortunate that Nigerians have been captured. Let me just put it that way. We are now between the, how did you put it the other time? Yes. So left or right, I agree with him that it's very difficult to capture power from a ruling party in Nigeria, because they use every means possible to retain power, both unconstitutional, illegal, and whichever way you want to describe it.
And immoral.
Yes, and immoral. So it's very, very difficult. And you mentioned the NSAS people. I don't think it's possible for them to just translate into a political party. No. Because a political party is far, far different from just an agitation
or a bunch of activists.
Yes, activists. It's a difficult thing. I think the best they can do is just to put government on its toes, but to transform into a political party is a bit tough.
I think it's even possible for them if they are better organized. They can start from
the local government.
That's what happened in South Africa. 4 years. That's what happened in South Africa. Because the smaller parties, they were able to snatch, during the municipal election, they were able to snatch some seats from the ANC. Even where the Nelson Mandela Bay, where the ANC had dominated for years. In the municipal elections, those small parties were able to snatch. It was unheard of. But you have to start from somewhere. You can see how Malema is going, you know. So you have to start from somewhere, and they may just get there.
Afolabi is calling us from Lagos.
Hello.
Yes, thank you for staying with us, Afolabi.
Thank Thank you very much. I greet you, Babajide, and Deji, and you too, Ayo.
All right.
You see, I want to comment on the PDP issues. You see, there is one thing people fail to understand. When the Secondus were elected, it was elected through the convention properly, yes, for which most of every constituents were nominated from the grassroots, and the grassroots also came to the national convention to elect him. So by that, he has a very strong root, making him to be more stronger. That is why I like the step that the Board of Trustees took. They really make a wisdom stand for doing it, that except convention were taking place before they can remove Secondus.
Okay, thank you, Afolabi.